Close your eyes and picture a 1960s or 70s American kitchen. The warm scent of a freshly baked pie drifting from the oven, a brightly colored gelatin mold chilling on the counter, and the chatter of family gathered around the table. Desserts weren't just treats. They were celebrations, comfort, and a way to bring people together. From school potlucks to holiday feasts, these sweets carried flavor, creativity, and memories in every bite. Unlike today's store-bought, mass-produced desserts, mid-century recipes were personal and hands-on. Jellies, custards, puddings, and elaborate cake creations reflected the ingenuity and flair of home cooks, often using what was on hand or in season. Every dessert had a story, whether it was a neighbor's signature gelatin mold, a grandmother's custard pie, or a festive chocolate torte that marked a birthday. But over time, many of these iconic sweets disappeared. Changing tastes, industrialization, and the rise of convenience foods slowly pushed them out of daily life. In this video, we'll uncover 25 forgotten desserts from the 60s and 70s, exploring their flavors, textures, and the special place they once held in American kitchens. The 1960s and 70s were a transformative period in American life, and desserts played a surprisingly central role in that transformation. Post-war prosperity, suburban expansion, and the rise of convenience foods created a unique culinary landscape. Families were eager to celebrate both everyday moments and special occasions, and desserts were the perfect vehicle for indulgence, creativity, and connection. Unlike today's fast-paced, pre-packaged treats, sweets of this era required thought, effort, and a touch of flair, making them as much a cultural statement as a culinary one. Homemade desserts were staples at family dinners, neighborhood potlucks, and school events. A perfectly layered Jell-O mold or a creamy banana pudding was a source of pride, a way to impress neighbors and relatives while showcasing a cook's skill. Desserts were often seasonal, relying on locally available fruits like peaches, cherries, or berries, or incorporating pantry staples in inventive ways. They weren't just about flavor. They were about presentation, creativity, and ritual. Convenience foods began to emerge during this time, but they didn't replace creativity, they enhanced it. Canned fruit, gelatin, and instant puddings allowed home cooks to experiment, building colorful, textured desserts that were visually striking as well as delicious. Retro favorites like icebox cakes, layered puddings, and frosted sheet cakes highlight the era's embrace of both practicality and flair. The kitchen became a playground for imagination, and desserts were a tangible way to celebrate prosperity and ingenuity in suburban households. Regional differences also played a role. In the South, desserts often emphasized richness and sweetness. Pecan pies, chess pies, and coconut-based treats reflected tradition and local ingredients. The Midwest favored fruit cobblers, simple sheet cakes, and pudding-based creations, highlighting practicality and family-friendly flavors. Meanwhile, the Northeast embraced more formal desserts like custards, tarts, and multi-layered cakes, often influenced by European culinary traditions brought over by immigrant families. Contrasting with today's dessert culture, which is often driven by convenience, branding, and global trends, 60s and 70s desserts were personal, inventive, and intimately tied to family and community. They were expressions of care, celebration, and identity. Rediscovering these sweets allows us to reconnect not only with the flavors, but with a way of life that valued creativity, effort, and shared joy. In this video, we'll explore 25 forgotten desserts that once graced American tables, each with its own story, flavor, and cultural significance. From wiggly gelatin molds to rich custards and playful icebox creations, these desserts offer a window into the heart of mid-century American kitchens and the joyful artistry of home cooks. In mid-century America, pies, cobblers, and cakes were more than just desserts. They were symbols of home, family, and celebration. Whether baked for a casual Sunday dinner or a festive holiday, these sweets filled kitchens with aroma, color, and anticipation. Each slice carried a story, a memory, and a touch of mid-century culinary creativity that many modern desserts no longer capture. Pies were a cornerstone of 60s and 70s kitchens. Classic favorites like apple pie, cherry pie, and pumpkin pie graced holiday tables, while more inventive versions like brown sugar chess pie or shaker lemon pie highlighted regional creativity. These pies were often made from scratch, with flaky crusts and luscious fillings, showing the skill and care of the home cook. Fruit pies, in particular, connected desserts to local produce and seasonal availability, tying families to their communities and the rhythms of the year. Cobblers offered a simpler but equally comforting alternative. Peach cobblers, berry cobblers, and brown sugar-topped fruit bakes were quick enough for weeknight meals, yet impressive enough for guests. Cobblers were flexible. Leftover fruit could become a dessert, or fresh-picked berries could inspire an impromptu treat. They reflected practicality, creativity, and the era's approach to resourceful cooking, balancing flavor and accessibility. Cakes, meanwhile, were often the centerpiece of celebrations. Layered cakes, Jell-O cakes, and frosted sheet cakes turned everyday ingredients into show-stopping creations. A birthday cake was more than dessert. It was ritual, presentation, and family pride rolled into one. Bakers experimented with frosting textures, fillings, and decorative touches, turning simple sponge cakes into memorable experiences. For example, a chocolate mousse layer tucked into a vanilla sheet cake or a pudding-filled bundt cake demonstrated the era's flair for combining flavors and textures. What made these desserts particularly special was their versatility and personal touch. While modern desserts often rely on convenience or packaged mixes, mid-century pies, cobblers, and cakes encouraged experimentation. Bakers could adapt recipes based on what was available, the occasion, or personal taste, creating a unique dessert that reflected both the cook's personality and the cultural context of the time. These desserts also fostered social connections. Cobblers might accompany a neighborhood potluck, pies could appear at a church gathering, and layered cakes were the highlight of birthday parties. The process of baking, mixing, rolling, layering, and decorating became part of the shared experience, connecting generations through hands-on culinary tradition. Rediscovering these pies, cobblers, and cakes today allows us to experience the textures, flavors, and stories of mid-century America. They remind us that desserts were not just indulgences. They were expressions of care, creativity, and cultural identity, now waiting to be revived in our own kitchens. One of the most visually striking hallmarks of 1960s and 70s desserts was gelatin. Jellied creations, often bright, colorful, and sometimes wiggly, were as much about presentation as they were about flavor. These desserts were playful, eye-catching, and versatile, reflecting an era when home cooks embraced novelty and creativity in the kitchen. Jell-O molds were a centerpiece of many mid-century American gatherings. Multi-layered molds combined different flavors, colors, and even textures, sometimes incorporating fruits like cherries, pineapple, or mandarin oranges. Some molds were set in elaborate shapes, from domes to flowers, using specialized molds that added flair to holiday tables, potlucks, and community events. They were more than desserts. They were statements of imagination and care, demonstrating a cook's skill and attention to detail. Gelatin salads also became popular. Sweetened with fruit or combined with whipped cream, these desserts blurred the line between salad and sweet, creating visually stunning dishes like ambrosia salad or mock apple salad. Some included marshmallows or nuts, adding unexpected textures that delighted both children and adults. These recipes were inexpensive, relied on pantry staples, and showcased the ingenuity of home cooks who turned simple ingredients into a festive centerpiece. Frozen gelatin desserts were another innovation. Layered gelatin combined with sherbet or ice cream introduced temperature contrasts and fun textures, making them particularly popular for summer gatherings or birthday parties. They were easy to prepare ahead of time and transported well to picnics or potlucks, which added to their appeal. The popularity of gelatin desserts also reflected broader cultural trends. Refrigeration had become widespread, and instant foods were on the rise, allowing home cooks to experiment with new forms and combinations. Bright colors, geometric layers, and playful shapes mirrored the optimism, creativity, and boldness of the era, making dessert a form of visual and culinary expression. Contrast this with today's dessert trends, where minimalist designs, chocolate-centric treats, and single-flavor indulgences dominate. The wiggly, Colorful gelatin desserts of the 60s and 70s evoke a sense of nostalgia and whimsy that is often missing from contemporary sweets. Rediscovering these molds and layered creations allows us to reconnect with the playful spirit of mid-century American kitchens and experience the joy of desserts that were as fun to look at as they were to eat. These jellied and gelatin desserts serve as a reminder that baking wasn't only about taste. It was about presentation, creativity, and the delight of sharing a visually striking treat with family and friends. By reviving them, we celebrate the artistry, ingenuity, and playful spirit of 60s and 70s dessert culture. The 1960s and 70s were an era of indulgent textures, and few desserts captured comfort and sophistication like custards, puddings, and other creamy treats. These desserts were beloved for their smooth, luscious textures, subtle flavors, and versatility. They could appear in elegant dinner parties or as simple weeknight indulgences. Unlike today's quick-fix puddings, mid-century versions were made with care, often from scratch, and reflected the home cook's artistry. Custards were a staple of the era. Simple yet elegant, they ranged from classic baked custards and flans to more elaborate caramel-topped creations. Custards were smooth, rich, and creamy, offering a sophisticated alternative to heavier cakes and pies. They were often flavored with vanilla, nutmeg, or citrus zest, demonstrating how subtle seasoning could elevate a simple dessert into something extraordinary. Custards also showcased the cook's skill. Achieving the perfect texture required attention, patience, and precision. Puddings, both baked and stovetop, were equally popular. Chocolate pudding, butterscotch pudding, and rice pudding delighted children and adults alike. Layered puddings became a canvas for creativity. Combine chocolate, vanilla, or butterscotch with fruit, whipped cream, or crushed cookies, and you had a visually stunning and delicious dessert that could serve a crowd. These desserts also highlighted resourcefulness, using pantry staples and leftovers to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Creamy desserts weren't just indulgent, they were comforting. A warm custard after a chilly dinner, or a chilled pudding on a summer evening, offered tactile satisfaction and emotional connection. Many were served at family gatherings, holidays, and community events, creating memories tied not just to flavor, but to the act of sharing. Regional and cultural influences added variety. Southern kitchens might favor banana puddings layered with vanilla wafers, reflecting a legacy of homegrown ingredients and family traditions. Northern and Midwestern households often embraced baked custards and puddings with seasonal fruits or nuts, adding texture and flavor to classic recipes. These variations highlight how mid-century Americans infused personality, locality, and creativity into everyday desserts. Contrast with today, modern desserts often prioritize convenience, speed, or visual minimalism, while 60s and 70s custards and puddings prioritized flavor, texture, and a balance of subtlety and richness. Rediscovering these creamy classics allows us to appreciate the tactile artistry of mid-century cooking and reconnect with a style of dessert making that emphasized care, patience, and shared enjoyment. Custards, puddings, and creamy desserts remind us that indulgence need not be extravagant. It can be thoughtful, comforting, and deeply memorable. By reviving these forgotten favorites, we honor a culinary era where texture, flavor, and emotional resonance went hand in hand on every American table. Summer in mid-century America wasn't complete without frozen desserts. The 1960s and 70s saw a wave of creativity in ice creams, sherbets, frozen pies, and popsicles, reflecting both technological innovation and a growing appetite for fun, convenient sweets. Refrigeration had become widespread, and freezer space in suburban homes allowed families to experiment with frozen treats in ways that were previously impossible. Icebox cakes and layered frozen pies were staples of summer gatherings and potlucks. By alternating layers of cookies, whipped cream, and sometimes pudding or fruit, home cooks created no-bake masterpieces that were visually striking and deliciously indulgent. Frozen pies, often featuring fruit fillings or custard layers, added variety and a cool relief during warm months. These desserts could be made ahead of time, freeing up cooks to enjoy the festivities along with their guests. Popsicles and ice pops were beloved childhood favorites. Homemade versions allowed experimentation with flavors, fruit juices, or even playful color combinations, creating treats that were as fun to make as they were to eat. Commercially available options like fudgesicles or fruit-flavored ice pops became staples of neighborhood summers, creating shared experiences and memories for generations. Sherbets and granitas added another layer of sophistication. Lightly sweetened and often fruit-based, they offered a refreshing contrast to richer desserts, proving that frozen treats could be both elegant and accessible. Recipes like orange sherbet floats or lemon granita demonstrated creativity, while remaining approachable for home cooks. These frozen desserts were more than just a way to cool off. They were a reflection of cultural optimism and playful experimentation. Bright colors, layered textures, and novel combinations were central to the visual and sensory appeal. Unlike today's commercially uniform frozen products, mid-century frozen desserts celebrated individuality and imagination. Each dessert could be personalized, adapted to available ingredients, and presented in ways that reflected the cook's personality and style. Rediscovering these frozen classics reconnects us with the sensory delights of mid-century summers. The creamy richness of ice cream, the refreshing bite of sherbet, and the playful, wiggly texture of popsicles. They remind us that desserts can be fun, experimental, and deeply tied to memory and community. By reviving these treats, we honor an era when frozen desserts were a highlight of childhood, family gatherings, and neighborhood celebrations, offering both nostalgia and inspiration for today's kitchens. Mid-century American kitchen was complete without cookies, bars, and brownies. These treats were the ultimate combination of simplicity, flavor, and nostalgia, often serving as both everyday snacks and show-stopping elements for gatherings. While cakes and pies marked celebrations, cookies and bars provided comfort and convenience, bridging the gap between home baking and casual indulgence. Cookies were endlessly inventive. Classics like chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, and snickerdoodles were staples, but the era also embraced more playful options. Recipes featuring nuts, coconut, or sprinkles reflected the colorful, experimental spirit of the 60s and 70s. For school lunches, afternoon snacks, or spontaneous baking sessions, cookies were practical yet satisfying, portable, shareable, and often made with ingredients already on hand. Bar desserts were equally versatile. Lemon bars, date squares, and layered fudge bars allowed home cooks to maximize flavor while minimizing labor. These desserts were often easier to transport and slice, making them favorites for potlucks, church events, and community gatherings. Their layered textures and combination of sweet and tart flavors exemplified the creativity and resourcefulness of mid-century bakers. Brownies, meanwhile, were iconic. Fudgy, cakey, or nut-studded, brownies could be simple treats or elaborately decorated for special occasions. Variations like marbled chocolate and vanilla brownies or blondies showcased experimentation with flavor and presentation, while remaining approachable for everyday baking. They were often the first recipe a young baker learned, connecting generations through hands-on cooking experiences. What made these cookies, bars, and brownies special was their adaptability. Home cooks could adjust sweetness, add nuts or fruits, or layer ingredients in novel ways. Many recipes were passed down orally or handwritten in family cookbooks, making them deeply personal. These desserts were tactile, interactive, and comforting, tying flavor to memory and family tradition. Contrast with modern snack culture. Today, cookies and bars are often prepackaged, uniform, and convenience-driven. Mid-century baked treats celebrated individuality, creativity, and connection. Baking them wasn't just about eating. It was a ritual, a way to nurture family, and a way to participate in community gatherings. Rediscovering these forgotten cookies, bars, and brownies allows us to reconnect with the textures, flavors, and stories of the era. They remind us that even small, everyday desserts can carry immense nostalgia, creativity, and joy. By reviving these treats, we honor mid-century home baking and bring a touch of its playful, comforting spirit into modern kitchens. Despite their charm, creativity, and flavor, Many beloved desserts from the 1960s and 70s gradually disappeared from American kitchens. Understanding why reveals a story of societal change, industrialization, and shifting culinary priorities that shaped modern dessert culture. One major factor was the rise of industrialized, mass-produced foods. By the late 1960s, prepackaged cakes, instant puddings, and boxed mixes flooded grocery stores, offering convenience and consistency. While these products saved time, they also replaced the hands-on, inventive baking that defined mid-century dessert culture. Elaborate Jell-O molds, layered icebox cakes, and hand-baked pies were often seen as labor-intensive or outdated, gradually falling out of daily use. Changing tastes also played a role. As Americans became more health-conscious, desserts that were rich, sweet, or gelatin-heavy started to feel retro or indulgent. Creamy custards, multi-layered cakes, and sugary gelatin creations lost popularity in favor of lighter, simpler options or commercially branded treats. Regional specialties also waned as families moved to urban or suburban areas, leaving behind the local ingredients and culinary traditions that made these desserts special. The convenience culture of the 70s accelerated this disappearance. Busy families increasingly relied on frozen desserts, pre-made cookies, and store-bought pies. While efficient, these substitutes lacked the personal touch, creativity, and cultural storytelling embedded in mid-century homemade desserts. With less time and fewer ingredients dedicated to baking, many iconic recipes gradually faded from memory, surviving only in old cookbooks, recipe cards, or oral family traditions. Finally, social and cultural shifts contributed. Community potlucks, Sunday dinners, and neighborhood gatherings, where desserts played a starring role, declined in frequency. Without these occasions to showcase creativity and share culinary heritage, many recipes lost their relevance, becoming nostalgic relics of a bygone era. By examining why these desserts disappeared, we gain insight into how convenience, industrialization, and evolving tastes reshaped American kitchens. These factors remind us that recipes are not just food. They are cultural artifacts, reflecting the values, routines, and creativity of the people who made them. Rediscovering these forgotten sweets allows us to reconnect with that history and revive flavors that once defined family life, community, and celebration. Though many desserts from the 1960s and 70s disappeared from everyday kitchens, they are far from lost. Rediscovering these recipes offers a delicious way to reconnect with the flavors, textures, and creativity of mid-century America. For home cooks, nostalgic food enthusiasts, and curious learners, reviving these sweets is both a culinary adventure and a journey into cultural history. Start with classics like Jell-O molds, banana puddings, or layered icebox cakes. These desserts are surprisingly adaptable for modern kitchens. Fresh fruit can replace canned varieties, lighter creams or yogurts can reduce richness without compromising flavor, and simple decorative tweaks can make them visually appealing today. Even traditional cookies, bars, and brownies can be revisited with a modern twist while honoring their original charm. The process of rediscovery isn't just about cooking, it's about storytelling. Each dessert carries a memory, a grandmother's custard pie, a birthday cake frosted by hand, or a gelatin mold that stole the show at a neighborhood potluck. Making these recipes today allows new generations to experience that connection, creating memories that mirror those of the past. Sharing these desserts with family or friends preserves both taste and tradition, allowing culinary heritage to live on. Online communities, vintage cookbooks, and family archives provide a treasure trove of forgotten recipes. With a little experimentation, these desserts can be updated for modern ingredients, dietary preferences, or presentation styles. The revival of these treats also encourages creativity, as home cooks explore layering techniques, flavor combinations, and aesthetic designs inspired by mid-century ingenuity. Rediscovering these desserts reminds us that food is more than sustenance. It's culture, memory, and expression. Whether it's a creamy custard, a colorful gelatin creation, or a fudgy brownie, each dish offers a window into the past while inviting innovation. Bringing these desserts back into our kitchens allows us to savor history, connect generations, and experience the joy of hands-on baking that defined an era. By revisiting forgotten sweets, we not only revive flavors, but also honor the artistry, imagination, and warmth of mid-century home cooks. These desserts offer more than taste. They offer stories, nostalgia, and the joy of shared creativity, proving that even decades later, the magic of 60s and 70s American desserts can still delight, inspire, and connect us all. As we conclude our journey through 25 forgotten American desserts from the 1960s and 70s. It's impossible not to feel a deep sense of nostalgia and admiration for the creativity, ingenuity, and warmth of mid-century home cooks. These desserts were far more than just sweet treats. They were celebrations of family, community, and culture. Each recipe tells a story of the people, places, and moments that shaped American kitchens in an era defined by both innovation and tradition. In the 60s and 70s, desserts reflected a culture that balanced practicality with imagination. Housewives and home cooks transformed simple ingredients, canned fruits, pantry staples, and basic dairy into visually striking and flavorful creations. A layered icebox cake, a vibrantly colored gelatin mold, or a rich custard pie was more than dessert. It was a demonstration of skill, patience, and care. Even everyday treats like cookies, bars, and brownies were infused with personality, creativity, and love, turning ordinary moments into memorable experiences. These desserts also highlight the social and cultural fabric of the time. Potlucks, Sunday dinners, birthday parties, and neighborhood gatherings were occasions where sweets took center stage. A well-made pie could spark conversation. A layered pudding could evoke admiration. A perfectly frosted cake could become the highlight of a celebration. Desserts weren't just about satisfying hunger. They were expressions of hospitality, artistry, and joy. Regional variations further enriched this culinary tapestry. Southern kitchens celebrated sweet, rich pies and layered banana puddings, while northern households showcased elegant custards and fruit-studded cakes, reflecting local ingredients and traditions. Yet, despite their importance, many of these desserts faded from everyday life. Industrialization, convenience foods, and changing tastes gradually replaced homemade creativity with mass-produced uniformity. Gelatin molds and custard pies gave way to pre-packaged desserts. Layered cakes were replaced by boxed mixes. With urbanization and the decline of community-centered dining, many recipes lost their audience, becoming forgotten relics of a bygone era. Rediscovering these desserts is more than an act of culinary nostalgia. It's a revival of cultural history and creative spirit. Modern home cooks can bring these treats back to life, adapting ingredients for contemporary tastes while preserving their essence. Whipped creams can be lighter, fruits can be fresh or seasonal, and presentation can be updated to suit today's aesthetic, but the heart of these desserts, the joy, the creativity, the storytelling, remains intact. Moreover, this revival bridges generations. Sharing a chocolate pudding, Jell-O mold, or homemade brownie with children or friends isn't just about flavor. It's about passing on history, memory, and tradition. These desserts teach us that food is a form of connection, linking the past with the present, and inspiring creativity in the kitchen. They remind us that even simple ingredients, when combined thoughtfully, can evoke emotion, nostalgia, and joy. Celebrating these desserts also celebrates a spirit of ingenuity that defined the era. Home cooks of the 60s and 70s experimented with layering, textures, and visual appeal, creating dishes that were as beautiful as they were delicious. From vibrant gelatin creations to rich custards, from fudgy brownies to intricate cakes, these sweets demonstrate that creativity isn't limited to professional kitchens. It thrives wherever passion, imagination, and care meet. As we honor these lost desserts, we are reminded that they represent more than flavor. They capture a cultural moment, a communal spirit, and the artistry of home baking. Each dish embodies the values of patience, resourcefulness, and celebration that shaped mid-century American life. By bringing these recipes back to our kitchens, we not only taste history but also preserve it, creating new memories while honoring the past. So, the next time you reach for a whisk, a mixing bowl, or a mold, Consider recreating one of these forgotten treats. Experience the layers, the textures, and the flavors that delighted families decades ago. Share them with loved ones. Celebrate creativity. Rediscover joy. Because these desserts are more than just sweets. They are stories, traditions, and a testament to the enduring magic of 1960s and 70s American kitchens. Through rediscovery, adaptation, and sharing, these desserts remind us that home baking is a living art. They encourage us to experiment, to create, and to cherish the moments around the table. They teach that flavor is inseparable from memory, creativity, and community. And above all, they prove that the magic of mid-century desserts, though forgotten by many, is still alive, waiting to be enjoyed, celebrated, and passed on for generations to come.